Howdy guys, welcome back to the channel. If by some miracle you were unaware, there is a new exotic mission in the game, and its premise is, what if you broke through the pit in Pit of Heresy, and instead of progressing through the dungeon, you scampered through the wall like a little rat, which is exactly what I wanted to do my entire life. So yes, I obviously love this mission, and have been asked by a bunch of viewers over several videos and posts, when is the video coming out? So let me tell it to you straight. This is just the first of many videos about this mission, so get hyped. But for now, let's get back into this video. So how many pits are in Pit of Heresy 2? Believe it or not, it's more than the original Pit of Heresy, which if you aren't up to date with the pit count in Pit of Heresy, I will link my original video in the description and recommend you go watch it, because there are a lot of similarities and references to that video in this one. So pause this, click the link in the description, and go watch the other pit video. It goes by fast, I think. Okay, welcome back. Now that you're educated, let's get started. Unlike in the first video, we can't even consider the name as a pit, because as much as I'd like it to be, it's not called Pit of Heresy 2, rather Oblation Bloodline. This is also a good point to mention that I'm only counting pits in the first mission, Bloodline, and not the other two, which is just because I felt like they were more Lucent Hive than Scarlet Keep type Hive, which is still super cool, but yeah. Okay, so we can't count flying in, so the counter is still at 0. But the moment we load into the mission, you'll notice we are in the exact same pit as Pit of Heresy, even though it does seem to have been breached to be made wider to let this massive laser drill in, +1 regardless of the breach. So after you load in, what's the first thing you typically do? That's right, progress the mission. Unless you're a psycho who wants to push around a barrel for 5 hours. Stay tuned for that video. So progressing the mission. You shoot some guys, pull a lever, shoot some fuses, and then you get to this point with the cooling vents. The mission tells you to shoot the vents to disrupt the cooling system. And once you shoot the vents, there is an obvious visual modifier to the vents to show that they have been shot. They start as a red hot vent, and then after the shot, they get carved out into what you could call a pit into the machine. And I know I'll get some arguments in the comments, but whatever, it's my opinion, this is my video. These are pits. So tack on a +4 for all of the cooling vents on this cooling tower, and let's move along. If any of the sarcastic ones among you are calling BS on me for that, perhaps you're thinking in your little sarcastic tone, oh, what's next? He's gonna count the launchers? And nah bro, what? That's clearly not a pit. Like, there isn't even a slight argument there. Yeah, holy truth nuke, bro. Okay, but seriously, there really isn't much else in this encounter. Nothing that really counts as a fighting pit, nor an actual pit, save for the other 8 cooling vents you have to shoot out to progress the encounter. So after that, +8, what is even left? That's right, the pit in my soul for the game being over. That's for sure a +1. No, I'm kidding. I'm just stalling for time, but that's the last of that. There is actually one more pit in the first encounter though, and this will be controversial, I think. In the last video, I didn't count any out of bounds shenanigans, and I think in the case of videos like these, it should be the standard not to. Unless of course the video idea is something like, how many oobs in Pit of Heresy? But I had to break the rule just once to show you this abomination of a pit that just leads out into the beautiful mesh of the world. I'd call it a +1 because it's a pit that leads to where the first chest and subsequent entrance to Ogre Maze should be. But alas, this is a completely new environment with imported assets and not just like a restructured version of Pit of Heresy. Okay, so we cleared first and turned off the laser beam. Now we're standing on a little rock island in a pond of magma. Instead of going forwards into that scary pit-filled section, let's turn around and look at the massive cannon pointed at us. Does this count as a pit? I mean, at first glance, absolutely not. It's the inside of a cannon, it's pointed down. Theoretically, it goes to all the innards and doesn't have a bottom. I mean, it was connected to the cooling vents somehow, right? But when we take all of these things into account, what do we realize? There is no way Bungie modeled out an entire interior for this thing, and instead probably just slapped a big hollow cylinder into a slightly skinnier pipe. Now what would that make? A pail shape with an open top and all sides enclosed plus a bottom, which is suspiciously close to a pit if you ask me. And as to the argument of, well, it's pointed down, we already decided that pits can be on the x-axis, provided they still fill out the rest of the criteria. All that being said, there's not a chance I count this as a +1. There's no world in which people will describe this as a pit. Moving on. And guys, this area terrifies me. There's just so many pits in here, I don't know where to start. I guess we can take a look at the actual area that got bored out by the laser drill. I'm writing this way past my bedtime, so I don't want to argue. This is a pit. If you go up to the intended exit for the room at the very tippy top and turn around and look down, you can't tell me that's not a pit. Just because the way in which you move through it is different than the standard pit doesn't mean it's not a pit. +1. Inside this room is the fun stuff though. If we start at the bottom and start working our way through every tunnel, side passageway, and little space that you can just barely squeeze through, we'll end up with several more pits. Let me start breaking them down for you. First, the bottom tunnel. Following this path down, you hit a little door frame type cave entrance that leads into a little pit area with an acolyte standing guard. +1. This is for sure a pit the same way a conversation pit is a pit. Further into this room, there is another very deep pit that you can jump into and die. No need for argument here. This is a very easy +1. Moving up the little ramp pathway that wraps around to the left, we hit our next room, which is inside a little dark crevice, not unlike my own. But the similarities end once you make it to this little drop off that leads into a pit with a knight. I haven't really come across this yet, but I'll bring it up here. This is both a battle / fighting pit and a pit type pit. I was wondering if I should count it twice, but I don't think so anymore because it's not two separate entities I'm looking at. It's just one pit with two different descriptors. So +1, and hope the comments agree with me. The next room has a big old death pit that I think looks really cool. Something about the texture on the walls is very satisfying to me, but +1. Then we hit another arena type pit that has a couple acolytes in it to fight, plus a big swinging lantern, so +1 again. One of the pathways in this area circles back to that night room that was both an arena type pit and a pit type pit, but we won't be counting it again as another pit because we already counted it as a pit type pit. You feel me? The next one is something I came across that is very akin to the holes in the ceilings of all the hive gazebos in Pit of Heresy First Encounter, and I guess now also Oblation Bloodline First Encounter. And that is of course a hole in the ceiling. This is a little drop down within the ledges and ramps of this, I suppose you could call it a movement encounter, that is arguably a pit. I don't think that, and I won't be counting it as such, but you could consider this a pit. I think that it's more of a square cut out of the stone to make a hole. Sure, it leads out into a pit, but the pit it leads out into is a pit that we already counted earlier, the main pit of this movement encounter. I mean, it's just not called a pit. This is a shoddy hole at best and will be considered as such by me. No movement on the counter. Okay, so now that we're out of that section, on the path to the next area, what happens? Well, you're never going to believe this, but we hit another pit. Technically, we hit it on the bottom side, so we have to climb out of it, but once you're at the top and turn around and look down, you'll realize you're looking into a pit. +1. After that, you enter this beautiful room called the Soulfire Krux, according to the location text that appears in the bottom left corner of the screen. And guys, I love this room. It's so freaking cool and pretty and I love it. It is also a pit for the same reason the first area you load into is a pit. It's a very large pit, but even a pit is a pit on a large scale, +1 pit to the pit counter. As it goes with most new areas, however, there is stuff to explore and look at. For us, it starts in this side room, which is home to a massive conglomerate of hive wards, and also a pit, like a rather large one. Looking at this from the bottom, it does just seem like a room, but again, as is the trend in this mission, it likes to put us at the bottom of pits and have us climb out of them. Kind of opposite to Pit of Heresy, but regardless of where we are in the pit, it is still a pit. And if I might add, looks so sick and hive-like. This is the perfect vibe, I think. +1. There's also another pit in the side room to the right over here, +1. Guys, there's another hole in the ceiling. Generally speaking, I don't think these are pits. You just don't describe them as such, and it doesn't match the criteria that makes a pit. But this one is different. The only way in is through the top, aka the hole in the ceiling. If you try to enter the normal way, you will find that you are in fact barred, thanks to a couple walls and an immovable iron gate. So is this a pit? I mean, yes and no. Like, this is going to sound so stupid, but the only reason I'm not going to count it as a pit is because you can see through the iron bars. If it was a solid wall or enclosed by stone, I might have a different opinion, but being able to see into what could have been a pit just kills it for me. It's more of a vibe thing, but then again, so is this whole video. Like, I appreciate the idea of having the gates so we can see the collectible inside and have the collectible hunt not be as much of a wild goose chase, but also imagine it was just like a tiny little hole that dropped down into a hidden buried hive building, essentially a pit. You drop through the hole into a pit. But since it's not that, despite my dreams and imagination, this does not count towards our tally, and we move along. Quickly going through a couple, we have the hole in the stairs that you need to drop down in order to progress, +1, and then we have a huge drop down after the staircase, which I don't think anyone will have complaints about me counting, +1. Okay, this one I did want to explain explain a bit. So after the yellow drop down, we hit a second open area that counts as a pit, so +1 there. But instead of repeating the gimmick of big room to tiny constrictive area back to big room, this area was built to lead out into an even bigger area, and I think that even bigger area counts as a second pit. If you look carefully at the ground as you traverse through this section, you'll notice that it drops off to a seemingly bottomless area after you are in view of the final encounter. Now that was enough to convince me, since we counted basically the same thing or a version of the same thing in the first video during the opening traversal section. So +1 for me, but again, feel free to argue. Moving on, we hit the outside of the boss arena, a very cool looking red and green Scarlet Keep Crota-esque area. Now is this a fighting pit? I think the argument can be made. With the hive structures above that are seemingly almost designed to spectate the actions of the middle, I mean, this is a fighting pit to me, +1. Next, we should briefly touch on the pyres that you dunk Soulfire in. I tried to wrap my head around a few possibilities in which these could be pits, but yeah, they're not. Bowls? Yeah, absolutely. But pits? No way. Speaking of the pyres, after you finish the thrall and dunk the first buff, you need to go into a side room to repeat the process with another thrall. And I believe that this side room is a pit. I actually think it's both kind of pits, because if you look up, it seems like we're at the bottom of the Pit of Heresy dropper, but instead of the wizard maze encounter, we ended up in a wizard ritual encounter of some sort. Plus, entering this room just feels like entering an arena or fighting pit of some sort, especially with the elevated level surrounding where the action takes place, +1. Now into the actual boss arena, and I mean, come on, this is a pit. Not only is it sick as balls for a fighting pit, but it also has an upper level surrounding it, making it an actual pit, which I think is just the cherry on top of the whole mission, +1. There are 2 more rooms you need to go into in order to beat this boss, due to the fact you need a buff to break the overshield. Unfortunately, these rooms are not pits, despite their slight similarities to the room outside of the boss arena that we counted. Something about the lack of an upper level plus the lack of a hole that could have seemingly dropped you into this encounter if you took a wrong turn on your Sparrow while patrolling the moon. It's just sad to me. Still really cool encounter, just not a pit. Same for the room on the other side of the arena. The second to last pit is right here in the middle of the boss arena. During DPS phases or when they end, I'm not actually quite sure on the timing of this, an ogre will climb out of this pit under the Stem of Thorns, or whatever this actually is, somebody smarter than me can tell me, and join the fray, +1. And lastly, I wasn't sure whether to count this or not, but I think I would be remiss to not mention it, this little grate filled with green Soulfire liquid underneath it. I like that it implies a pit that got filled up, and I also like how the game plays off of that by letting you shoot through the grate and not having your shots impact as soon as they hit the surface level on the Soulfire, rather going into it as deep as we are willing to imagine. This is a pit to me, and hopefully it's a pit to you. If not, let's argue. Perhaps over a bowl of stew, +1. And that wraps up the mission. That's another video counting random stuff in dungeons down. As is the custom, let's take a look at the final reveal of how many pits are in Pit of Heresy 2, aka Oblation Bloodline. Dun 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 dun. And the total is dun 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 dun. 33 pits. So yeah, now you know. Tell some people. Also, I know this was controversial and I expect at least one comment who took this way too seriously and is here to spite me with my horrible opinions. But hey, I said argue with me, so maybe that's what I'm expecting. Regardless, I will answer or at least heart every comment on this video, so feel free to share your opinions or ideas with me. I would love to hear them. If you enjoyed the video or at least tolerated it, consider subscribing because most of my content is like this or better. Liking the video is always an option too. I think it helps out the algorithm or something, so like the video please. Also share the video so you can discuss and agree with your friends on how wrong I am. That's like almost all the shilling I want to do. Also, I have a Discord. Me and my pal Philly Phil have a Discord together. You should join up, especially if you have challenge ideas you want to share or want to LFG pit or really anything in your imagination. I'm biased, but I think we have a good community and we would love to have you. So click the link in the description, join up, and unless I see you in there, I will see you for next week's video. Bye.